Hello, Noah.
Hey.
It's great to have you here with us. Thank you for joining.
Of course. Thanks for inviting. Mom, Ted.
Amazing. So a little bit of an introduction. Noah is a general partner of Don't Quit Adventures, accomplished entrepreneur, philanthropist, and son of an Algerian immigrant. He co-founded Get Charged Inc. Charge, was Lime's first employee in Europe, led Voix as VP in Europe, is a part of Epic Foundation Initiative. He backed over 16 startups as an investor, and that is the tip of the iceberg. Thank you so much for joining us here today, Noah. And we are here to talk about cultural heritage and education, which is to say, how does one's background affect their life? You have had an incredibly complicated journey, overcame adversity, and you're immensely successful and having a wonderful, wonderful life. I have a question for you. So you were born in an immigrant family in France. Did that affect your upbringing at all?
Yeah, I think, of course, it did. Post-colonial countries such as France and their relationship with North African countries or African countries in the history of humanity, it's still very, very short. You know what I mean? So it needs time to heal. It needs time to move on, and the ideology must change. So I was lucky to grow up in France with a following story I would like to share with you. Look, my grandmother told me the following, because she's the one who raised me. My mother left us, I was very young. And she told me the following. She was like, look, I was in Algeria. She grew up in the mountains. We were in the mountains with my mother, and one day we saw soldiers walking into our land with a flag I have never seen before, speaking a language I've never heard before, talking about a God I've never heard before as well. And they told us that our centuries of traditions were over. Our language was also over. The God we believe in was also over. And that 60 years later, when Algeria went towards its independence, they had a choice or to stay there or to move to France, which she chose to move to France. And when she arrived to France, she said, look, I was full of resent over what happened. It really, really murdered us in our hearts. But you know what, son? This is my story, but it's not going to be yours. You are born in French, you're French, and you're going to believe and behave as such, because my story is not going to be yours. She decided to build on forgiveness. She decided to build her legacy, which is me, on progress, on beautifulness, on peace, rather than resent, rather than hate, rather than wrong, rather than past, on how we move from there and forward. So, as such, she's made my integration easier. She's made my perception of the world as French easier as well. And she taught me to capitalize instead of looking at what makes us different, by skin color, religious, language, to look at what makes us closer. As such, my upbringing has met all the challenges that all post-colonial kids living in the ghetto I grew up in have met, but better armed because she made the choice of forgiveness and progress and not transferring her trauma and pain to me, while other parents did. And hence the resentment, and hence when today you have kids who don't know what they are. Who am I? Am I from Mali? Am I French? Am I black? Am I white? Am I this? Am I that? Am I this? Am I that? So she protected me from her trauma and the horror of colonizations. And for that, I'm eternally grateful because I've managed to navigate better than others on that aspect.
That's quite a story, Noah. I mean, it's quite difficult, I think, for a lot of people, especially immigrants, but even some people growing up in post-colonial countries in their own motherland to have a sense of identity. So it's quite admirable to have that built. And what about schooling? How was your journey with education like?
Well, that one sucked. Look, I'm the kid elementary school that spent most of those days in chilling in the hallway because I couldn't focus with the janitor rather than being in a class. I'm the kid in high school that spent most of his time in the principal office with the receptionist rather than in class because I was deemed as a clown. I was deemed as someone that cannot focus. I was deemed different. And as such, because I was different, because I couldn't focus into gathering information just to bring it back after, because I rather laugh in math class rather than just trying to focus in stuff that I thought will never help me in life, right? Do you think the theorem of Pythagoras will help you today when you go make grocery shopping or when you apply into a job? Fuck no. Because I was treated differently, I felt disabled by the schooling system back in the days. So schooling didn't go very well for me, and it resulted in me dropping out at 16 years old.
That's very, very early on. Do you think that the way that the education system has been has affected how you view education now, whether you think it's important or useful?
Yes, I think it's always easy to assess stuff afterward, right? And see what didn't work. I personally want to be grateful to France as a country because schooling is free. That's one thing. And it's great public quality schooling during my time. And I can only be grateful to that. I can only be grateful to some teachers who tried to help me because I was a child that was very, very, very unstable. I didn't have a mother. The father was not there. I was being raised by 80 years old grandmother in a very tough family and financial context. So they tried. And I'm grateful to that because sure that they didn't, it may have been worse. And I'm grateful to that as well. What I can say is, what can we do to make things better in education, right? And I think it's to try to treat children's differences as equal as possible as the others. The fact that I couldn't and I didn't like and I really disliked sitting in a room 8 hours a day during 5 days a week didn't make me any lesser than others. The fact that I didn't have brands, I always wore the same clothes during years, the same clothes, like literally the same, like we're becoming smaller and everything. I would have advocated for everyone wearing the same clothes, like uniforms at school. Equality, you understand? And I also feel the grading system, when you have to get the best grade, by definition, create a frustration in some kids that is very unfair. The fact you don't perform at school doesn't make you any lesser than others. To me, at least, that was the feeling back in the days. It was funny because I came back home to my grandmother. I was like, look, I'm not having great scores and everyone is making fun of me. And she told me this and it stayed with me since. She told me, other people's opinion of you doesn't have to become your reality. So build your own reality and find what you're good at. And I think we get to celebrate failure. And this is the third pillar school must improve, which is to celebrate children's failure rather than blaming them, pointing fingers at them. So, equality with the clothes, the grading system. Yes, we all need to understand how are we progressing, but can we put it in a way that it doesn't put children against one another and it doesn't challenge them against one another or challenge them in a positive way? So the grading system. And third is how do we celebrate failure? Because the best way for your brain to learn is to make mistakes and to fail. Otherwise, you don't learn, literally. Well, that will be my outlook on schooling.
I guess we're all so very afraid to make mistakes that we are scared to advance and make a leap of faith in any way. And maybe your two last points are tied in together, collaboration. How do we really build something meaningful is by doing something together, collaborating, but also making mistakes together, because how do you make something new without making mistakes?
Correct. Great. I think mistakes is the mother of success. I say involuntary mistakes have to be celebrated. Voluntary mistakes and failures resulted from laziness and not goodwill must be reframed. However, does it make any sense to put a 0 or a C on in red mark on a white page and give it back to the kid and say, hey, go to your parents? Does it make any sense to do that? And what will trigger inside the kid? And how? That's from micro perspective. And now from a macro perspective, you have a state that tells you, hey, we have this program, right? And children during that year, they must absorb that program. Teachers, you have 35 hours or 40 hours a week to have them absorb that program. So help you God. Therefore, you have the macro needs and the micro needs that don't literally intertwine each other very well to some extent. And how can we make that better? How can we give more priority? It must be also political will. I feel it's Musk who said this, and it was very interesting. He said, today it's easier to send human on Mars than reform the educational system. I agree.
Yes, that is very true. I mean, that is something that is time and time again. Our current educational system is a little bit rigid, but there's a lot of advancements that are trying to be made in a way to not raise what you call a function, but rather a human being with compassion, with values, with critical thinking, someone who is able to navigate in real life. You know, sometimes we graduate from school, we have no idea what to do.
Point.
Exactly. Yes. Do you think that school does at all any good of a job in giving us a real life skill that we need in life?
That's the entire missing point. I feel like from a state perspective, you have to train kids to discover what arts are, what engineering is, what history was, for what math are, and so on, to have them touch as much as possible and have them ready for secondary and then obviously university stage. The thing is, how do you integrate in that? How do you save money? What you're going to do with your paycheck? How to invest your paycheck? How to socially navigate? How to be kind? And these skills, fundamental. Today, that you have kids that leave university that make a paycheck and have no fucking idea what to do with it. I wish we had a course telling us how to save money, where to invest money, how to have your money make more money. Ultimately, you're being trained to become productive, to get a job, get a paycheck, and then from 25 years old until 65 years old, you're going to work all year long. You're going to get 1 month vacation until you're 65, ready to die and retire, and they call it a life. Sure, that we are talking more about the system and how education plays in it. And my take at the end, so we had first the equality. How do we have all the children provided a uniform so they dress the same way, nobody bodies each other, and we build self-affirmation into kids. 2, grades. How do we have a grading system that promotes positive challenges and growth? 3 was, how do we celebrate failure? How do we celebrate mistakes to grow and learn more? And 4 is ultimately, how do we integrate self-emancipation skills within our schooling system? That's a bit my relationship to school, and mine was a total disaster in every way possible. I was a terrible and horrible teenager, and I was fired more times than you can believe from high school. My name was always last on the list. I didn't have clothes, and the only thing the system tried to make me believe back then was, because I suck at that, I would suck at everything else later on in life. And I have a total aversion for anyone that's trying to box anybody somewhere. You can suck at 15 years old and be totally great at 18. You can suck in university and yet suddenly bump into the thing that makes your heart beat and become a genius. Predeterminism is something that shouldn't apply in education. You have to value more experience and will than a school degree. And before the internet, before the tech came in, the only source of knowledge you had out there at knowledge was schooling. But now, I could pretty much earn a bachelor degree just by watching videos on YouTube. Sure? So that was the 5 pillar I wanted to share with you today about schooling.
Thank you. They're very unique and I guess unusual, but we all think about them in some way. We know for sure that sometimes during the educational system, if you're not doing that well, your self-esteem gets trumped. And if you don't have that self-esteem and confidence and love for yourself, it's really hard to build onto something. And you're talking about finding something bigger, to strive towards something that makes your heart beat. It can get so difficult if you're already putting yourself down.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. And look, you mentioned going to a safari in Africa with your family. Lucky you. I remember I was in secondary school and where The Lion King came out at the cinema. And we didn't have money, and obviously I couldn't go to cinema, but I saw this beautiful, poster with the big lion and the big sun behind Lion King. And I went back to school enthusiastic, and I say to my teacher, "Hey, madam, I'm gonna go to the Lion King world sometimes, and it's gonna be great. And Africa, wow, I will see Pumbaa and Simba, and I will dance with them." And she looked at me in the eye because back in the days, man, my name was Kareem when I was young, my Algerian name. And she looked at me in the eye, and I will never forget that. I was like 10 or 11 years old, and she looked at me and she came there and said, "Karim, it's good to dream, but during the night, not during the day. So now get back to work. Lion King, maybe you will see it in a few years, but only on the screen." I'm 41 years old. I probably ran 10 safaris as of today and traveled around Africa more than you can even think, and with a lifestyle that goes with it. And I can see what I would say to teachers that are listening. I know it's hard for you. I know you're not being paid much and yet have such a responsibility. But sometimes, please, just because your dreams are buried, don't try to do the same with kids. The same way my grandmother protected me from her resentment and hate. Teachers have to do the same to kids. Protect them for whatever is not good in you or what you have given up into. If we're not here to tell children, hey, you can become anything you want or achieve anything you want, then why the hell are we even teachers? Or why do we even are in school? Hope. Voila. This is what I think, if I have summarized one word of the last 15 minutes, is hope.
Wonderful feeling that can do things that we never thought were possible. I think humans have infinite potential to do anything. And I think hope is the one thing, is the beacon that gets us to get up in the morning, gets us to brush our teeth, to put our clothes on, to look or do something incredible, with our lives. So you're exactly right. It's teachers, your grandmother, as the people who put hope in our hearts.
Correct.
It's cool.
So you brush your teeth?
I have to, unfortunately. Maybe it's the dentistry industry, but I'm not there to stop doing it yet. One day we'll have something where I won't have to brush my teeth.
Oh my God. Okay.
And you were talking about the 5 pillars of what could be done in the educational system. Do you think if you had those 5 pillars, your life would have been different than it is right now in business or life generally?
No. I think the very idea if you're not stable at home, you're not going to be stable in any other area of your life. So that was personal to me. I feel what helped me both at school, and that we circle back to your questions, with all these NGOs that are around and gravitating around the schooling system to compensate, all the things that are not complete. That helped me a lot, which was like after school, before school, and keeping us busy on weekends and Wednesday. That really helped. However, I think it would have made my schooling journey better. Would that have changed the trajectory of my life? On the very feeling that being seated, doing 8 hours a day just to absorb and give back information, it's not the thing. I mean, guys, at school, I'm the guy who was always sitting on the last row and looking out the window about my dreams, trying to see what I can do out there, rather than what the teacher was writing on the board. And that is inherent to my DNA. What is out there to explore? Didn't make anything she was saying or the teachers were sharing any less interesting. It's just, it was not for me. And it takes balls to come back one home to your grandmother and tell her, hey, I'm 16, I'm dropping out. It was a total drama. She started to cry. And then she told me, what you going to do? I was like, I'm going to be door-to-door sales. And then she started to cry. She was like, this is what you're going to do with your life? You're going to knock at people's doors? And no matter how things would have been framed before that, I'm pretty sure my DNA was, you got to figure shit out and not be taught. Voilà. And this is what we should encourage kids to do, to dare to listen to their inner voice. And that's the hardest part, because we preach conformism. You have to look like others, and societies are already expectations from you. You need to show materialistic realizations, you need to show social realizations, you need to show degree realizations, you need to show good behavior realizations, you need to show this, you need to... Fuck that shit. Fuck that shit. Think will come to you when they're meant to come for you. True, and that's the very idea I grew up with.
You've had an incredibly unique upbringing, truly, and I start to admire Sandra more and more.
Oh,
the
no.
more you talk about her, the more I think that she is an incredible woman who, although I know that a lot of this was in your DNA, you know, how you are and your passion and your fire and the spark in your eyes, even maybe that got you distracted during classes and made you look out the window, but something
Sure.
that drove you. And, you know, she was always your safe haven, your bae that made you, you know, gave you that backing that maybe a lot of kids are lacking a little bit, just like you mentioned.
I think if you're lucky to have at home someone who loves you, my grandmother was more tough love, but that loves you, I think it's 50% of the thing. There is no correlation between school degree, university degree, and success in life. There is no correlation at all. However, and this is what I will tell to my daughter that is now 3 months old, I will tell her, I'm okay if you don't perform in school, but you will have to overachieve in life. You can overachieve in life and not be good at school. It won't matter, right? And you get to aim as high as you can and miss, rather than aiming low and hit. Everything I've done, all the choices I made, were the most irrational thing you can imagine in your life. Irrational.
I love the expression, shoot for the stars, hit the ceiling. And I usually say with our team, whenever I come in and we're having a meeting or with our partners, and I say, think of the craziest things. We can do any crazy ideas. And when we were creating this forum, it came from just like a small 100 people and then get together to a 24-hour, several hundreds of speakers and thousands of viewers. It's shoot for the stars and you'll hit the ceiling on your way.
Correct. And get through it. I mean, you know, when you're trying to fit in, you disappear. It's like Tetris, the game.
Yeah.
And so how do you take kids and educate them to value their uniqueness? The very gift that life gave them. The very thing that makes you unique. So why the hell would you compare yourself to others and try to look like others? Why the hell would you do that? You disable the very gift that life gave you. The uniqueness. There is no human being that is exactly the same, DNA-wise. And yet, we are pushing people to neutralize that, to conform, dress the same, talk the same, behave the same, get the same stuff, be the same, and by all means, don't try a beauty. This is fucked up. This is truly fucked up. And this is what school has tried to push me to. Conformism. I couldn't say it with these words when I was 17 years old, because when you're 17 years old, you're just thinking, hey, fuck you. But now at 40, I can put word into what my 70 years old crazy me was doing. And don't. When I speak to children and I speak to random people all the time, by all means, what you have in your heart, just go for it.
Has all this kind of experience is what inspired you to your philanthropic journey?
Yeah, I think, look, no matter who's listening to us and spending the time to do so, you got to get lost to find your path. This is what could define me today. But you really, really, really get to get lost to find yourself. I think given my dad some gray hair, I really got lost. So I left school. I joined the police force. It didn't work. My grandmother died. I became orphan almost. From 20 to 24, I really fucked up. I've made mistakes. I went to prison. I looked exposed. Couldn't find a job. Couldn't get an apartment. Couldn't get a bank account. I couldn't even get a fucking girlfriend. This is more than 20 years ago, but still, it really breathed the sense in me of whatever I'm going through, and whoever is listening, whatever you're going through, when this is over, when you have transformed, because there is no way you stay the same after going through hardship. No matter if you triggered it or came to you by life, you will have the choice to share back to people so you can spare them as much as pain as you can, or you can let yourself get filled and not give back to your young self. I've decided to go the other way, and I'm very honored and happy today to be in position to do so. And you know what? We say success. We all have our own definition of success, but to me, the definition of success is to look at all the kids that are going through similar stuff I did, and any random and stranger person, and say, hey, had I have gone through what you're going through, this is what I would have done, and this is what I will do. Take it or leave it. I would get to give back. I don't know. It's a duty. I think with success comes duty, and duty is responsibility. If you don't do that, then quite frankly, you're nothing else than an empty shell.
Here we are trying to shed our shells and the shells of people around us, and
That's right.
yeah, and maybe the more we give and the more that we share with people, we drop that shell and we expose ourselves and we become vulnerable. But that also means that we can welcome our way a lot of love and kindness of other people by sharing it as well. It's very much reciprocated, and if you have, just like you said before, when you overcome adversity and you have difficulty, it is also a responsibility and an honor to build upon that and leave that behind to then build a better future, not only for yourself and your family, but just like you're doing it for everyone around you, for others. Yes. It's the person that you don't know that might feel it the most.
Correct, I agree. And you get a larger vision of yourself by being and providing for others. You do. It's crazy. I wouldn't see it any differently, at least for myself. And it takes a lot of dignity from someone to accept help, because we teach you that asking help is being weak. I say that anyone that is out there that is asking help is fucking strong. Sure.
We have our strength in others.
Yeah, you're the man. Mom, man.
No, it's always such a huge pleasure, and to speak to you, I always feel a little bit more inspired and upbeat. I just want to say that thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a huge pleasure. I know that all of the listeners and viewers are leaving today a little bit more open-minded, maybe inspired, and have a vision for tomorrow. I really hope that the educational changes that you're talking about can be implemented in our near future so that your daughter and the new generation can grow up just a little bit better off than we remember.
We can't fix everything like that, Alina, but as long as we make one step towards this, that's progress.
Yeah. The more of us together, the more steps that we can make together and help each other and get each other up and forward.
Amen. Amen, my man.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much to you.